All right, what's up, everybody? So this was Game 5 of the Talk Like a Pirate Day weekend for Los Angeles, September 2025. So Derek's and I met up on Saturday and at Gaming Grounds in Chatsworth. This was a two-player 100-point game. So my fleet had some customs from Seas of Japan and then a big Nemo-based SAC machine on HMS Salient. So all right, we'll get into the setup here. And he was using a fleet with Cristal del Obispo, HMS Cumberland, St. Joan, Annunciata, and then he had three of the giant squids, so Calypsos, Lechem Namad, and Cadera. So a pretty interesting spread of squids there. And per the house rules we use for this game, sea monsters would have the captain ability built into the sea monster keyword. So, and we were using round earth and things like that. I'll include a link to my fleet and the house rules in the description. So, and there's my fleet at my home island. So, the setup was kind of similar to some of the other games we played this weekend with some mega terrain. I wanted to make sure to include some whirlpools because I knew I had SAC via Mercer on HMS Salient. But what I didn't know is Eric's would have an SAT crew and Micron, so the whirlpools could assist him as well. So there's our setup, and I was really aggressive, maybe too aggressive with Salient early in the game. I saw he had Robinson on Cumberland along with Bratley, and I figured the face down crew was Micron, and I ended up being right. So Salient basically went through a whirlpool, sacked an oarsman via Mercer. I bladed the Cumberland to make sure I wouldn't get pinned at his home island, and captured Micron with Captain Nemo. So good start there, but I knew that counterattack could be game changing, which it was. So Takimaru was in the fog bank. The Red Seal ships have split up, and he had L boosters on Annunciata and St. John's. He was using Jules Arnaud and El Pescador. So the squids were able to take off at basically 3L, and then Cadera was moving pretty fast as well. LL or SSLL, I should say, sometimes if they were within L of these ships here with the boosters on them. So as a result of that, I had Fujigawa. She actually is a Japanese ship that allows Jade Rebellion crew to use their abilities on the ship, and that's based on history when I was making the Seas of Japan product. So Zheng Li Quan was able to sack to get her to this mysterious island, and I used the positive effect. It's basically allows you to bring in a crew worth 3 points or less from outside the game, so I was able to use that to replace the sack crew on Salient. So Cristal del Obispo looks like she's lost a mast via the whirlpool going to this mysterious island with Cadera for protection. So there's a close-up of my switchblade action. And the problem was Lechem Namad came through and sunk Salient, so I was probably too aggressive with Salient in this game. And so there my big threat was already taken out. Now at this point, I had both Red Seal ships come home, and I used the Dead Man's Chest UT, which was part of my fleet strategy. I eliminated crew to get gold. At this point, I had 11 gold, and I was seeing that Xerix had only one from Reese Griffin Owen, cargo as I call him, CRGO, and via killing him when he eliminated and sank the Salient. So I was thinking about trying to end the game as fast as possible, partly because I had already lost Salient, and I didn't really want to play the rest of this game without that ship. That was kind of like the centerpiece of my fleet, or at least 40 points out of the 100 approximately. And kind of when I made this fleet, that was the first ship I included. So I was happy. I was excited to use the custom too, of course, but I was kind of salivating at the prospect of playing another game, potentially with the chess clock. So I started formulating a plan to end the game as soon as possible, partly because I was ahead, and also because if we played another game, then I could, get to use my Salient sack setup again. So Takimaru has basically used Odzutsu and the archers to help smash up Cristal del Obispo. She came through a whirlpool, but then Takimaru was able to come out of the fog bank and hit her pretty hard to smash the ship. So overall, I was doing decently well at this point. The problem was how long it would take to get my ships out of play to end the game. So there's my home island, 11 total gold, near the big whirlpool. At this point, so now I was trying to take out my ships on the reefs and the whirlpools. I thought it wouldn't take too long, but it started to drag on. So basically, Takemaru put most of her crew on Cristal, scuttled Cristal. You can see that by the 5 mark there. My idea was Takimaru, she can't be given move actions when she has no crew. So I was going to try to take out the crew and then she'd be stuck basically. So at this point, Xerix still didn't have any actual coins on his home island, just the 1 gold from ransom. So I was trying to get it over with and just win 11-1 if possible. So Takimaru and Yamagawa and Fujigawa are all headed to their doom to try to get a second game in. But of course, a big issue there is the sea monsters can pin, but that doesn't prevent future move actions, because in theory Xerix could pin me and then move away at any point, allowing me to move again. So I had to make sure that I kept my ships out of pinning range, basically ramming range of his sea monsters. So here Cumberland with no Micron has gone to run gold via Whirlpool. Annunciata has returned to home waters via the Whirlpool. St. Joan is exploring that same island, it looks like. And here we've actually seen, I think this is probably the first Red Seal shipwreck. So Yamagawa, probably the first time that's ever happened in a Pirates game, because these are pretty new. These only came out, Red Seal ships only were released in 2025. So, and then here we've got Fujigawa is basically swapping between Whirlpools to try to take out her last mast. And I think Takimaru at this point, I think she was already stuck. So the problem was I couldn't get the good enough, or I should say bad enough, terrain rolls before Xerix got gold home. So St. John was about to Whirlpool, and then you can see her there. She's headed for home. And at this point, the creatures were basically chasing Fujigawa to try to block her from reefing herself or going back in through whirlpools. But there were so many whirlpools and reefs in play that they were all within like a move action of each other. So I was able to just kind of avoid the creatures by continuously whirlpooling. And of course, there's a little bit of a statistical arbitrage too, because the whirlpools would eliminate my final mast on a 50% chance versus the reef. I only had a 1/3 chance. I had to roll a 1 or 2 on the reef to eliminate the last mast from Fujigawa. But the real coup, Xerix made a great play here. He used one of the coins to build a fort on this mysterious island in the northwest, which basically gave him control of that gold, and that would end up being the clinching play. So I thought I could take out my ships before he could do something like that, but ended up not being the case. I needed worse rolls. I think there was a key whirlpool roll that I got, the good roll on when I needed the bad roll, which I think it was part of what allowed him the time to bring home a coin and build the fort. So that was it. So eventually it was clear at that point I wasn't going to catch up with just the 1 mast. So Fuji ended up being dismasted, and Xerix had won 24-11. So that fort gold netted him some of that Wild Island gold. And then, of course, once we reached that end game condition where I couldn't be given future move actions, he had more gold, probably because of the 10 or 18 or whatever it was on the fort island. So great play by Xerix to stave off the quick end game condition that I was trying to reach. So anyway, so this was game 5 total of the Talk Like a Pirates Day weekend, and the first of 2 games, 200-point games on Saturday of that weekend. So anyway, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the last game, game 6, that I participated in.